And joining me now for the next interview about standing for the House of Keys general election is Alf Cannan for Ayre and Michael. It's a bit of a crowded area up there now. It's, obviously a few people intent on trying to get in there, but you're the incumbent. Does that help? Does your track record speak for itself? What's the message you're getting on the doorsteps?
Well, look, I mean, people have got plenty to say to me at the moment, but it's always good that there are good candidates around, and people will have a choice now, a definitive choice at this election, and I can see that happening across the regions.
I mean, you had a lot going on, to say the least. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, I suppose, for standing? You've got a track record there. People are holding you accountable. So what are you hearing?
Well, look, I think the critical issue is that you want to talk about the future. Yes, of course, past performance is relevant, what you've achieved over the last 5 years, but very much this is about your plans for the future, what type of island plan you see developing, where the critical issues are. I've been outlining a number of key issues to people and of course listening to their concerns about a number of areas. Of course, critical to that now is COVID and post-COVID recovery. There's a lot of concern about the infrastructure on the island and local issues, particularly pertaining to infrastructure, but there's also critical issues now around healthcare transition and of course education. So there's a lot to do. There's a call for a refreshed plan for the island, and of course another critical issue at the heart of that is climate change. So look, people have a number of areas of concern at the moment. My job at the moment really is to listen, to understand those, to formulate my views on what a plan should look like, and then of course I'll be presenting that in my manifesto in the next couple of weeks.
You talk about the local issues there, infrastructure and that sort of thing, but I mean, is that a problem for you, because when you're dealing with national politics so much, for you to have enough time to spend in the constituency mode?
Look, I think a lot of the national issues, national in inverted commas issue, extend out into the constituency and what you might call local issues. It's important, I think, that you get the national issues right. They're the ones that actually impact most on people's lives. They're very much going to be at the forefront of the thinking at the moment, very much in the forefront of my mind. But getting an island plan that carries simplicity at its heart, but also strives to do the basics well, are going to overcome some of these issues. So some of the bugbears that are causing problems in people's environments in their day-to-day lives, potholes, drainage issues, verges being cut properly, signage being seen clearly. These types of basics must be delivered, I think, and there is a call to return to a back to basics campaign for infrastructure. That kind of platform gives people much more confidence that government is capable of tackling the big issues. So that will also be very much at the heart of any government plan, and will give confidence around some of the more complex issues that we are seeking to address, such as climate change.
And if anyone knows the cost of everything, it must be you, because you've been doing Treasury. You must be planning things when you say you want to do X or Y, whereas other people, you must hear them, they come up with all sorts of things. Is that a good or a bad thing, that you know the cost of most things?
Well, I know that pre-COVID, we were on track. We set out a clear five-year financial plan. Every budget up until the COVID March 2020, we were delivering on that plan, and we were achieving over and above that plan. We set out a clear financial plan to restore confidence, to help people tackle the cost of living, and to also tackle that critical issues of the public sector pensions deficit, and we were doing that and we were delivering that. COVID has thrown that off track naturally. We all know the extensive costs, but in extending out those costs, we've protected thousands of jobs, we've kept the economy alive, and I believe we've spent appropriately in the greater protection of the island. Nevertheless, there is now a call for a new 5-year plan. Yes, of course, I understand that actually government's finances again will be under some pressure. What we can't do is go back to that austerity period of 2011 to 2016. We must absolutely avoid that. But there will be a need, and when government puts together its plan, when we target our key areas, when we look at expenditure, say for climate change, where I think we can improve, for example, education, where we look at our healthcare transition commitments, then in terms of additional expenditure, I recognise there's going to have to be some adjustment, sensible adjustment potentially in other areas. But of course, defining that at an early stage is very difficult until you come together, put together the plan for government amongst the elected MHKs, and then seek to deliver it. The critical factor, Paul, in all this is making sure that early stages, when you put together that plan, that we cost it as much as possible at that critical juncture. Now, that was a potential failure early on in this administration, although our 5-year financial plan was set out, I believe, well. Nevertheless, I think when we're putting together what was the original programme for government, and I'm calling for a much firmer island plan this time, that plan does need to carry with it its costings so that we can understand both what limitations we've got and where the focus of the expenditure will be. Let's
go back to you, though, and what's going to happen next, because you've been in this position of Treasury thing. You've been very much part of Coman. Yeah, I think you played your own role. I mean, you haven't exactly taken sides with the Chief Minister. You haven't been exactly the best of pals as such. Is that right or wrong? Is that important that you've been seen to be doing your thing quietly and carefully without, that feeling of being told what to do?
Look, you accept the limitations of council and ministers, collective responsibility, and I believe that I've adhered to that and supported council appropriately, that our spending plans have been appropriate in line with the council's agreed programme for government. Obviously it's within that it's been important that I've worked collegially, not just with council and ministers, but I also have my own political colleagues in Treasury, and of course you extend that out to others across government. It's vital that I think this idea that council and ministers should just be pigeonhole itself and not discuss matters with other MHKs is wrong. I think that we can move to improve that communication. I think you can improve that communication with MHKs, more broadly, and also I think publicly as well. And those are sort of elements that I think where you can see areas of improvement, particularly highlighted throughout COVID. And I think that's what we should be striving for in the future.
You've made it pretty obvious, I think, anyway, that you want to be Chief Minister. Do you want to address that one here? Because obviously people want to know what's going to go on. If you get in, what sort of position do you feel you want to take?
Well, I think it's clear that I've already highlighted the absolute need for a strong island plan for the next 5 years, for that plan to be properly costed. That's the critical element. What I've said to my constituents is that I intend, if elected, to play a full part in trying to deliver that, to improve their lives, to take the island forward. And I will formulate what position and where I perform that role in government. After the election.
You stood last time in this administration to be the Chief Minister. It's clear you have designs on that office, right? I mean, just say it. I mean, you want to be the Chief Minister, right?
Paul, I don't think you can just determine yourself. We have a very a unique system of party politics or non-party politics over here on the island. Vast majority of individuals coming into government are independents, and as I said, I think it's important that you find like-minded MHKs, people who share the same values and broadly the same objectives. And once you can establish that group exists and that it holds sway from a majority perspective, then you can consider where you shape yourself within that group. And look, I think we should move away from definitive statements around this. I think important part is the contribution you're willing to play, the role that you're going to have in terms of relaying that to your constituents, and my commitment to do the best I can for my constituents. And that's my position at the moment.
I do understand that, but I've asked everyone whether they'd like to be in the next administration. Everyone's had that question, and follow that, I always say, who do you want to be the Chief Minister? Your name comes up, obviously Mr. Alex Allison's name comes up, maybe others will be there in that field as well. So, I mean, what position would you like in the government then? Let's try that question. Can you answer me? Which department would you want to stay in Treasury?
Well, Paul, I think the critical issue here is that the new government sets out to deal both in terms of setting out a plan that is simple to understand, tackles the core issues that people are finding every day to be unacceptable: potholes in the road, gully clearance, roadside verges clearance, but also sets out a clear plan around climate change, education, healthcare transformation.
What do you want to do?
But my role will be to contribute to that. I will set out my position in my manifesto in the next 10 days or so, and my role will be to come in, if elected. And bear in mind, there is a big question. I'm not preempting.
But I'm asking everyone the same questions.
Paul, I'm not about to preempt what my constituents are going to determine as to whether or not I should play that sort of role within government.
But if I said to you...
The first thing is to be clear with everybody what I perceive to be the big challenges, where I perceive those solutions to lie, in what direction. And then if my constituents were to give me that opportunity, then I would consider with others what role then I would play within government.